Aidan was just a stable boy and nothing more, or at least that is what everyone believed about him. He lived in the shadow of the castle walls in a small wooden hut beside the stables. He was thin, dirty, and always smelled of hay and horse dung. His clothes were worn, his hands were rough, and his face was plain. Nobody noticed him, unless it was to order him around, or make fun of him to the knights. He was invisible to the nobles, he was worthless to the servants. He was only a boy who worked harder than all but earned less than any. He spent his days feeding horses, cleaning their stalls, carrying buckets of water, and fixing broken saddles. Nobody thanked him, nobody praised him. When he walked through the courtyard, people barely moved out of his way. Sometimes they even pushed him aside just for amusement. The children of the nobles laughed at him, calling him the donkey boy because he was always with animals, but Aidan never argued, he never shouted back. He simply lowered his eyes and continued with his work. In his heart, however, he carried a silent weight. He wished for more, but he knew life had given him nothing except mud, sweat, and loneliness. Yet Aidan was not an ordinary boy, not truly. While others laughed, he listened. While others boasted, he observed. And while others slept, he dreamed strange dreams, dreams of fire and wings, dreams of shadows that moved beneath the earth. Sometimes he woke up at night, sweating, his heart racing from visions he could not explain, but when morning came he forgot them as if they were smoke in the wind. One evening after the day's work was done, Aidan sat alone in the stables. The horses were calm, the night air was cool, the moon hung above like a silver coin. He listened to the soft breathing of the animals, and felt at peace. But then he heard it, a sound faint but clear, not the sound of horses or rats, or even wind. It was a low hum like stone grinding against stone. It came from the ground below the stables. Aidan frowned and bent down, pressing his ear against the wooden floor. The sound was there again, steady and deep. His heart beat faster. He looked around, but no one else was near. Curiosity burned inside him stronger than fear. He took a lantern and followed the sound, moving to the farthest corner of the stables. There, under the old haystack, was a stone slab he had never seen before, covered in dust and dirt. It looked ancient, as if it had been there long before the stables were built. Aidan brushed it with his hands, and his fingers found strange marks carved into the surface, symbols he could not read, yet they glowed faintly as his skin touched them. He pulled his hand back in shock. The glow faded, but his curiosity grew. With trembling fingers he touched them again. This time the glow spread brighter, the stone trembled, the hum grew louder. Aidan's breath caught in his throat. What was this? He tried to push the slab, and to his surprise it moved slowly but surely, like a door, a hidden door beneath the stables. His hands shook, but he could not stop himself from lifting the slab beneath it. A stairway led down into darkness, air cold and ancient blew out like the breath of a forgotten tomb. Aidan lifted his lantern, and the light showed dust floating in the air. The stone steps were narrow and deep, leading far below the ground. Aidan hesitated for a moment. Fear told him to close the slab and run, but another voice inside whispered, "Go down, find out. You were meant to see this." He swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the first stone stair. The sound grew louder, vibrating in his bones. With each step he descended further, until the noises of the stable above were gone, and only the hum remained. After what felt like forever, he reached the bottom, and found himself in a massive chamber. The lantern light flickered across walls covered with carvings, strange beasts, men with wings, fire raining from the sky, battles beyond imagination. He felt small in front of these ancient pictures, as if they were telling him of a history lost long ago. In the center of the chamber stood pillars black as obsidian, glowing faintly with the same symbols he had touched above. Aidan stepped closer, and the air grew heavy around him. Then he heard it, a whisper, not from outside, but from inside his head. It was deep and old, older than any man's voice he had ever heard. "You have awakened us." The words echoed in his mind. He dropped the lantern in shock, but it did not break. Its flame cast shadows across the room, and in those shadows Aidan thought he saw movement, shapes large and curved like wings, tails, claws. He froze, unable to breathe. The whisper came again, this time stronger. "We see you, boy. You are not afraid. You are chosen." Aidan shook his head. He was just a stable boy. He could not be chosen for anything. He wanted to run, but his legs felt rooted to the stone floor. Then the ground shook, the pillars glowed brighter, the chamber seemed alive. Aidan's heart raced faster than ever before. He picked up his lantern and backed away slowly, his mind spinning. What had he found beneath the stables? Why did it call to him? What was sleeping down here? The horses above neighed nervously, as if they too felt the change in the air. Aidan closed the slab again, and leaned against it, his chest rising and falling with fear, but also wonder. Nobody knew about this place, not the knights, not the nobles, not even the king. He was the only one who had seen it, the only one who had heard the voice. He looked at his lantern, flame shaking in the night, and whispered to himself, "This is not the end, this is only the beginning." Aidan could not sleep that night. His mind burned with questions, the strange glowing symbols, the hidden chamber, the whisper that had entered his thoughts. It was all too much for a boy who only knew the smell of horses and the scrape of old wood. He lay on the thin straw mat in his hut, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Every sound of the night seemed louder than before, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves, even his own heartbeat sounded like a drum. He tried to convince himself it was a dream. But when he touched his hands, he still felt the rough dust from the stone door. He knew it was real. The next day, he worked as usual, feeding the horses, brushing their coats, cleaning the filth, yet his mind was not in the stables. It was still down in that dark chamber, calling him, pulling him back. He dropped a bucket of water once, and the head groom scolded him, calling him useless boy, but Aidan hardly heard the words. His thoughts were trapped underground. By evening, when the sky turned orange, he could not resist any more. He waited until the castle grew quiet, until the knights had gone to the hall for food, and the servants were busy. Then he took his lantern again, and returned to the corner of the stable. His hands shook as he brushed away the hay, revealing the stone slab. His breath came fast, but he forced himself to push it open. The same cold air rushed out, wrapping around him like icy fingers. He lit his lantern, and stepped down the stairs. Again, each step echoing louder in his ears. Then, before he felt the chamber waiting for him, as if it had always known he would return. When he reached the bottom, the carvings on the walls seemed brighter, the battles of fire and wings almost alive. He walked slowly, eyes wide. The whisper came again, faint at first, then stronger. "You came back." Aidan froze. The lantern shook in his grip. "Who are you?" he whispered, but his own voice sounded small against the vast silence. The reply was not a single voice, but many, deep and rumbling like mountains moving. "We are the forgotten, we are the chained, we are the last." Aidan trembled, but his curiosity was stronger than fear. "Why me? I am only a stable boy." The voices rolled like thunder inside his head. "Because you are unseen, because you are ignored, and only the unseen may open the seal." The words made no sense to him, yet they filled him with a strange power. He took another step, and the lantern light revealed something new. At the far end of the chamber stood great shapes sealed inside crystal prisons. Massive bodies, curled wings, folded claws sharper than swords, their scales shimmered with metal, their tails rested like giant serpents. Aidan's mouth fell open. They were dragons, but not like the stories. These were different. Their bodies looked alive, yet fused with strange machines. Their eyes closed, but faint light glowed beneath their lids. He felt their presence heavy and ancient, pressing into his thoughts. He staggered back, almost dropping the lantern. The voices grew louder. Now not whispers, but a chorus. "Free us." Aidan shook his head, his legs weak. "I cannot, I don't know how." But as he spoke, the symbols on the pillars glowed brighter, pulsing with his heartbeat. It was as if the chamber itself answered his doubt. One of the dragons stirred, its claw twitched against the crystal prison. The sound of grinding stone filled the air. Aidan gasped, fear and wonder mixing in his chest. He wanted to run, but he could not. His feet stayed planted. The dragon's eye flickered open for just a second, golden and burning. It looked directly at him, not past him, not through him, but at him. He felt fire rush through his veins, and a connection he could not explain, like a rope tying his mind to that ancient beast. "You are the key," the voices said. Aidan's breath came fast, his skin felt hot. He pressed his hand against one of the glowing symbols. Without thinking, the stone pulsed under his palm, and the crystal around the dragon cracked slightly. A burst of energy threw him back against the wall. His lantern rolled across the floor but did not go out. The dragon's eye closed again. The hum of the chamber softened to silence. Aidan lay on the cold stone, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. He was terrified, yet he had never felt so alive. He realized he had touched something far beyond his small world. He was not just a stable boy anymore. He was part of something ancient, something dangerous. When he finally managed to climb the stairs back up, he closed the slab carefully, covering it with hay. His hands still shook, and his heart thundered, but his eyes burned with a new fire. As he looked at the night sky above the castle, he whispered to himself, "This secret is mine, and no one must know." Aidan could not stop thinking about what he had seen, the golden eye staring at him through the crystal, the voice that spoke in many tones, the energy that pushed him back. All of it haunted him every waking moment. He still worked in the stables, as always, carrying water and brushing horses, but his thoughts were buried deep under the stone slab. He felt different, though he looked the same. No one around him noticed the change, but inside his chest burned with a secret too heavy to carry. He wanted to tell someone, yet he knew he could not. If anyone discovered the chamber, they would take it from him, or worse, they would destroy it. So he stayed silent, even when nobles mocked him, or when knights pushed him aside. He lowered his eyes, but inside he thought, "You have no idea what lies below your feet." That night, unable to hold back, he returned to the chamber again. The stone door opened smoother this time, as if it welcomed him. The cold air rushed out, but he no longer feared it. His lantern flickered as He stepped down the stairs. The hum of the chamber greeted him like an old friend. When he reached the bottom, he felt the presence stronger than before. The pillars glowed brighter, and the crystal prisons shimmered with light. Aiden's eyes widened as he walked slowly toward them. The dragons were massive, each one larger than a house. Their scales shone like metal, and their wings folded like sleeping giants. Some had horns twisted like blades, others had tails covered in sharp plates, though their bodies were still. Their power pressed against him like a storm. He raised the lantern higher, and saw their faces, mouths lined with teeth sharp as daggers, eyes closed yet glowing faintly beneath the lids. Aiden swallowed hard. Fear and awe mixed inside him. He whispered to himself, "They are alive." Suddenly the voices filled his head again. "We wait, we sleep, we remember." He spun around, but there was nothing, only the dragons before him. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaking. "We are the first, we are the last. We are the fire forged in war." The voices thundered in his skull. Aiden dropped to his knees, his hands pressed against the cold stone. "Why me? Why do you speak to me?" "Because you are forgotten as we are forgotten," the voices answered. "The proud above cannot hear us, only the unseen may hear." Aiden felt tears sting his eyes. He was nobody, a boy no one respected, yet here in the darkness he was chosen. He stepped closer, placing his hand on the crystal prison of the nearest dragon. The surface was cold at first, but then it warmed under his touch. The glow beneath the dragon's eyelids brightened, and he felt something push into his mind, visions of fire, skies filled with winged cities, burning machines crashing, and dragons roaring. He gasped, pulling his hand back, his body shaking, but he knew now these were not ordinary beasts. They were weapons, living weapons created for war long ago. The chamber seemed to breathe around him, dust falling from the ceiling as the ground trembled. The dragon stirred again, its claw scraping against the crystal, its golden eye opening wider, this time staring into Aiden's soul. "You are ours," the voice boomed. Aiden stumbled back. "No, I cannot command you, I am just a stable boy." But the dragons answered as one. "You are the key, you woke us, you belong to us." He wanted to argue, but deep inside he felt the truth. He could not deny the bond forming. Each time he touched the symbols, the crystal cracked a little more. Energy surged through his veins. He was connected to them. The chamber grew hot, the lantern flames stretched high, shadows danced across the walls, making it look as if the dragons already moved around him. He dropped to his knees again, covering his face, unable to handle the weight of their power, but at the same time part of him did not want to resist. He had been nothing all his life, laughed at, beaten, ignored. Now something ancient and mighty called him master, even if he did not yet believe it. When the glow finally dimmed, and the chamber grew quiet again, Aiden stood slowly, his legs weak but his eyes fierce. He whispered, "I will return," then climbed the stairs back to the world above, closing the slab behind him. The night was silent, the castle towers stood tall against the moon, but Aiden felt he no longer belonged fully to this world. His heart stayed below with the sleeping beasts. Aiden felt the weight of the secret growing heavier with each passing day. He worked in silence, feeding the horses, sweeping the stables, and taking orders from men who thought him worthless, but deep inside, he carried something that none of them could imagine, the memory of golden eyes staring at him, the sound of voices speaking in his mind, the power that had touched his veins. He could not escape it, nor did he want to. Every night he returned to the chamber, beneath the stables, lantern in hand, heart pounding with both fear and excitement. The stone slab seemed to open more easily each time, as if it recognized him, as if it accepted him as its rightful keeper. And every time he stepped down the stairs, the hum grew louder, the symbols shone brighter, the air felt heavier, but familiar. The dragons were no longer just shadows in crystal prisons to him, they were becoming more alive. He could feel their thoughts pressing gently against his mind, whispers, like winds in a storm, calling him closer. One night as he reached the bottom, he found the chamber glowing brighter than ever. The pillars pulsed with light, and the crystal shimmered, as if something inside struggled to break free. Aiden hesitated, but then stepped forward, his lantern light flickering across massive wings and scales. He whispered softly, almost afraid to disturb them, "Why me? Why do you need me?" This time the answer did not thunder, but whispered in his head, a voice deep and calm, "Because you are unseen, because you are not poisoned by pride, because your heart listens." Aiden's chest tightened. He had never been praised, never told he was worthy, yet here in this dark, forgotten place, creatures older than kingdoms spoke to him, as if he mattered. He raised his trembling hand, and pressed it again to the crystal prison of the golden-eyed dragon. Warmth spread instantly into his skin, rushing through his arm, flooding his chest. His head spun with visions, flames, mountains breaking, skies torn apart, but this time he did not pull back. Instead he closed his eyes and let it flow through him. He felt the dragon's breath, though its mouth was closed. He felt its heart beating, though locked in stone. And then suddenly, he felt his own heartbeat match it, two rhythms becoming one. He gasped, opening his eyes as golden light flared. The dragon's eye was wide open, staring not at him, but into him. The bond had formed. He staggered backward, but the voice came again, clear and strong, "You are ours, and we are yours." Aiden pressed a hand to his chest. His heart racing faster than ever. What does this mean, he asked, but even as he spoke he understood. Somehow he knew he could feel the dragon's hunger, its rage, its memories, and also its loyalty like an oath carved into stone. The boy who had been ignored all his life was now bound to something ancient and terrible, yet also magnificent. He took another step forward, touching the crystal again, and this time the connection deepened. He saw through the dragon's eyes fire rushing from its mouth, wings slicing through storms, claws tearing machines. He felt the wind against its scales, the power of flight, the heat of battle. He gasped, stumbling as the vision ended, his lantern almost falling from his hand. Sweat dripped down his face, but his eyes were alight with wonder. He whispered to himself, "I felt it, I flew with it." As he stood trembling, another dragon stirred in its prison, its great horned head, twitching eyes glowing faint blue, then another tail scraping against crystal, wings shifting, dust falling from the ceiling. The chamber vibrated with energy. The voices filled his head. "Together we serve you, we follow you, our master." Aiden shook his head, tears in his eyes. "I cannot be a master, I am only a stable boy." But the voices answered, "You woke us, you bear the bond, you are chosen whether you wish it or not." He sank to his knees, overwhelmed. The same boy who cleaned dung and slept on straw now faced the power of armies inside stone prisons. Yet when he looked up at them, instead of fear he felt something else, resolve. He could not explain why, but he knew the bond was real, and it would not be broken, not by kings, not by soldiers, not by time. When he finally pulled himself to his feet, the glow of the chamber dimmed. The dragons settled again, their eyes closing, their bodies still, but he could still feel them deep in his chest like embers waiting for fire. As he climbed the stairs back to the stable, he whispered into the dark, "I will not fail you above." The world looked the same, the castle towers, the guards, the nobles laughing in the halls, but to Aiden nothing was the same anymore. He was no longer invisible, he was no longer only a stable boy, he was bound to the sleeping beasts, and soon the world would learn what that meant. Aiden lived two lives now. In the daylight, he was still the stable boy, silent, dirty, and ignored, carrying buckets of water, sweeping filth from the stables, listening to nobles laugh at him. But at night, when the castle grew quiet and the torches dimmed, he became something else, a secret keeper, a chosen master of ancient beasts. Every evening, when he slipped through the stone door, his heart raced with fear of being caught, but also with excitement. The air below welcomed him, the glow of the symbols guided him. The voices of the dragons filled his thoughts like a storm waiting to break. He returned again and again, touching the crystal prisons. Each time the bond grew stronger, clearer, until he no longer only saw their memories but felt their strength inside his own body. Sometimes when he lifted heavy buckets his arms felt lighter, as if claws guided him. Sometimes when nobles mocked him, he felt fire inside his chest, as if flames burned waiting to be released. He knew it was dangerous, but he could not stay away. One night the voices called louder than ever, "Ride." They whispered, "Ride and learn." He did not understand, but he obeyed. He placed both hands on the crystal prison of the golden-eyed dragon. This time the stone cracked wider, and with a roar that shook the chamber the beast moved, its neck stretched, its wings trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. Aiden's lantern blew out, yet the chamber glowed with the light of the dragon's eyes. He gasped, his body trembling, but the bond held strong. He heard the voice inside him, not outside, "Climb." At first he refused, his legs weak, but something greater pulled him forward. He placed his foot on the crystal, and suddenly, it melted like mist beneath him. He found himself standing on warm scales, golden and shining, the dragon's body real, solid, alive. He gripped the ridge of its neck as the chamber shook. "Hold tight." The voice warned. Then with a deafening crash the crystal prison shattered. The dragon stretched fully, wings spreading wide, its roar echoing through the underground halls. The ground shook above, and the horses in the stable cried in fear. Aiden clung to its neck, heart hammering as the dragon crouched, then leapt upward, bursting through stone and earth, breaking the old roof of the chamber. The slab exploded into the night air, and suddenly they were in the sky. Aiden screamed, but not from fear, from wonder. The wind cut against his face, cold and sharp. The castle below shrank into a toy. The fields stretched wide under the moon. The dragon's wings beat like thunder, each strike lifting them higher, faster. He felt every motion as if they were one, his heart and the dragon's heart beating together, his breath and the dragon's breath one rhythm. He laughed loud for the first time in his life, free above the world. Yet fear returned quickly. If anyone saw him, if the king or the knights discovered this secret, he would be hunted. So he urged the dragon with his thoughts, "Hide, hide." And somehow the beast understood. It swept into a dark cloud, moving silently through the night until even the stars could not find them. Aiden leaned forward, whispering, "Can you hear me?" And the dragon answered inside his head, "Always." He closed his eyes, tears stinging them. No one had ever said such words to him, not with such certainty. The night stretched long as they flew over forests, rivers, and mountains. Aiden felt every sight, every sound sharper than ever before. He knew this was not just flying, it was learning the bond, teaching him how to command Not with words but with thought. When he wished to turn the dragon turned, when he wished to dive the dragon dived, when he wished to rise the wings carried him upward, as if obeying his heart. After hours they returned to the stables, the dragon folding its wings, landing softly like a shadow, its body fading back into crystal prison, as if nothing had happened, but the crack in the stone remained proof that it was alive and awake. Aiden dropped to the floor. Gasping chest, burning legs, weak, yet his eyes blazed with fire. He had ridden a dragon. No one would believe him, but he knew the truth. The next day when the knights mocked him again, calling him weak, he lowered his head, but inside he smiled because he had flown higher than they could ever dream. That night he returned again, and this time another dragon stirred, blue eyes opening wide, its prison trembling. Aiden felt its hunger, its cold power like ice and lightning. He placed his hand against the crystal and whispered, "Not yet, soon," because he knew he had to be careful. If he woke them all at once, the world above would surely notice. But already his mind was racing. If one dragon could carry him through the skies, what could all of them do together? His heart pounded as he whispered into the shadows, "We will be ready when the world needs us." And the dragons answered with a low rumble, "We wait for your command, master." The days passed quietly above ground, but inside Aiden's heart the storm grew stronger. Every night he returned to the hidden chamber, flying with the golden-eyed dragon, learning how to guide its wings through the sky, and how to use the bond to speak without words. His confidence grew, yet he kept the secret close, never daring to reveal even a hint of what he had become to anyone. But fate does not keep secrets forever. One evening as the sun sank behind the castle walls, a strange light appeared in the heavens. First a single spark, then many like stars falling backward against the night. People in the courtyard gasped, pointing upward. Some thought it was a sign from the gods, others feared it was doom. Aiden's heart sank, because he had seen these shapes in the visions shared by the dragons long ago. Ships black and silver tearing through the skies, engines roaring like thunder, alien machines built for war. The lights grew larger, descending fast. Soon the ground shook as the first ship broke through the clouds, its metal surface shining with strange symbols. Knights shouted in confusion, bells rang across the castle walls, soldiers scrambled to arms, but their spears and arrows looked like toys against the massive vessel that hovered above the kingdom. The air burned with heat, the stables shook, the horses screamed in terror. Aiden dropped his bucket of water, his body stiff with dread, but deep inside the bond stirred. The dragon spoke into his mind. "They return." His breath caught. The invaders were the same enemy from the dragon's memories, the ones they were built to fight, the ones who had once nearly destroyed the world. Another ship followed, then another. Soon the sky was filled with dark hulks like predators circling their prey. The king shouted from the walls, ordering the knights to prepare, the soldiers to stand, but Aiden could see the fear in their faces. None of them had ever faced such machines. Their swords rattled in their hands, their voices shook. The first ship opened its belly and a beam of light shot down, scorching the ground, sending fire through the outer fields. Villagers screamed, running for safety. Animals scattered, chaos spread like fire through dry grass. Aiden stood frozen in the courtyard, watching men he had once feared run like frightened children. The nobles hid behind walls, the knights shouted empty orders. Arrows flew upward, but bounced harmlessly off the metal hulls. No weapon of men could touch the invaders. Aiden clenched his fists, his heart pounding. He heard the voices of the dragons, louder now, urgent. "Call us, master, call us, or all will fall." He looked around at the panic, the soldiers who once mocked him now helpless, the king shouting in vain, his people burning. Aiden felt a choice press against his soul, hide like the stable boy he had always been, or rise with the power that had chosen him. His lips trembled, but his voice whispered into the night, "Not anymore." He turned and ran to the stables, ignoring the cries of men around him. He pushed past panicked horses, tore away the hay from the corner, and lifted the stone slab. The hum below roared to life. As if sensing his desperation, he rushed down the steps, lantern shaking. The chamber blazed brighter than ever. The crystal prisons glowed fiercely, dragons stirring claws, scraping wings, twitching eyes opening wide. One by one they looked at him, fire, lightning, ice, shadows, all waiting. Their voices thundered, "Command us, master, command, and we fight." Aiden gasped, fear and courage mixing like storm and flame. "Come with me," he shouted, and the crystals shattered with deafening cracks, dust falling from the ceiling, the ground trembling as massive wings spread. The dragons roared, shaking the chamber, their bodies alive, glowing with power. They turned their eyes to him and bowed their heads one after another. "We are yours." Aiden climbed upon the golden-eyed dragon, his hands gripping the warm scales, his heart burning with fire. The beast roared and leapt upward, bursting through stone, earth and sky into the burning night. Above, people looked up in shock, their mouths open as a shadow larger than any beast rose into the air, a dragon, wings, wide eyes blazing. Aiden sat upon its back, cloak whipping in the wind. Knights froze, soldiers dropped their weapons, villagers cried out in awe as the impossible became real. But the aliens did not wait. Their ships turned, their lights focusing on the boy, and the beast, beams of energy shot downward, fire scorching the air. Yet the dragon, twisted with Speed impossible, dodging flames, climbing higher, Aiden shouted, though the wind stole his words, "Attack!" And the dragon obeyed. Its chest glowed with heat, then with a roar fire poured from its mouth, a stream brighter than the sun. It struck the side of the nearest ship, and for the first time the invaders screamed as metal melted under dragon fire. The soldiers on the ground stared in disbelief. One of the alien machines collapsed, burning, falling into the fields with a crash. Aiden's eyes blazed as he turned the dragon again, diving between ships, claws ripping metal wings, tearing apart weapons, each strike destroying what no sword could touch. Below, the people began to cheer, hope sparking in their hearts, yet the battle had only begun, for more ships filled the sky, and the aliens now focused all fire on the boy who once had been nothing. The night sky burned with fire as the first dragon soared above the castle, Aiden clinging to its neck, his heart pounding with fear and power. Below, people shouted in awe and terror. Some fell to their knees, others pointed and screamed. Nobody had ever seen a dragon alive, not in their lifetimes, not in their fathers' lifetimes. Yet here one roared into the heavens, its golden scales glowing like a second sun. But the invaders did not hesitate. Their black ships shifted, turning their weapons toward the boy and beast. Beams of white light cut through the air, the dragon twisted wings slicing through the wind. Aiden's grip tightened, his mind shouting, "Turn, dive, climb," and the beast obeyed, every thought moving as if it were his own. Together they dodged the beams, then with a terrible roar fire poured from the dragon's mouth, striking one of the smaller ships. The metal hull melted, the engines screamed before exploding in a ball of fire. The blast lit the fields below, and the soldiers cheered, hope surging in their hearts. Yet the victory was short-lived. More ships descended, their bellies opening, releasing machines like giant armored insects, wings buzzing, eyes glowing with red light. They fell upon the castle walls, blasting stone with energy beams. Soldiers fought bravely, but their swords and arrows broke against the alien armor. Screams filled the night as towers crumbled. Aiden's chest burned. He could feel the bond with the dragons calling louder, "Not alone, master, not alone." And from below the chamber more roars thundered through the earth. Then the ground split open as the other dragons burst into the sky, wings black, blue, silver, and crimson. They rose like storm clouds, their eyes blazing. The people below gasped in terror and wonder. Knights dropped their weapons, nobles hid behind walls, villagers cried out their prayers. But Aiden only smiled. For the first time in his life, he was not alone. The dragons circled him, their voices booming inside his mind. Together, he raised his hand and pointed toward the invaders' attack, and they obeyed like thunder unleashed. One dragon spat lightning that shattered three machines at once. Another breathed ice, freezing metal wings solid before shattering them into shards. Another dove claws tearing through a ship, ripping it open as fire spilled from its core. The sky became chaos, light and flame crashing metal, the roars of dragons echoing louder than war horns. Aiden guided them through the bond, his thoughts sharp, his commands clear. Strike here, burn there, shield the walls. Every beast moved as if his will was their own. Below, the people stared in disbelief. The boy they had once mocked, the boy who cleaned stables, now commanded monsters greater than armies. Even the king stood frozen on the wall, his crown shaking upon his head as he watched a child do what his soldiers could not. The invaders realized the threat and turned their fire fully upon the dragons. Beams of heat cut through the night, explosions shook the air. One dragon roared in pain, its wings scorched, but Aiden shouted, "Hold," and the beast steadied, pressing forward with fury. Together they struck back, harder flames, brighter lightning, stronger ice, colder claws, sharper, until ship after ship fell burning into the fields, crashing into the rivers, breaking against the mountains. Aiden's chest ached, his body trembling with the weight of so many bonds, but he held firm, his mind locked with theirs. Every strike, every turn, one heartbeat, many wings. Soon the sky that had been filled with black machines now burned with falling wrecks, smoke rising into the night. The last ship tried to flee, engines roaring, but Aiden pointed, and the golden dragon surged forward faster than wind, its jaws opening wide, flames engulfing the vessel, until it exploded into pieces, raining fire across the clouds. Silence followed, broken only by the heavy sound of wings. The dragons circled slowly, their eyes glowing, their bodies shining in the moonlight. The battlefield below lay in ruins, alien machines. Smoking stone walls cracked, but the castle still stood. The people gazed upward in stunned silence. Then cheers erupted louder than thunder. They shouted and wept, pointing at the sky. Some bowed, others raised their arms. Knights dropped to one knee, soldiers pounded their fists against their chests in salute. Even the nobles who had scorned him stared in awe. The boy they had once called worthless had saved them all. Aiden looked down at them, his face hard, his eyes burning with golden fire. He did not smile, he only whispered to the dragon beneath him, "This is only the beginning." And the beast roared in answer, shaking the night as if to warn the stars themselves that the age of the stable boy was over and the age of the dragon master had begun. When the battle ended, and the last of the alien ships burned in the distance, the night grew strangely quiet, only the sound of crackling fire, and the heavy breaths of dragons filled the air. The people who had been screaming in terror now stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the sky where Aiden hovered atop the golden beast. The boy who had once been nothing, the boy they had called weak and useless, now shone like a figure from legend. Knights who once mocked him now lowered their swords and bowed their heads. Soldiers who once shoved him aside now saluted with trembling hands. Nobles who once spat at his name now whispered in fear of what he had become. Even the king on his high wall stood pale, his crown crooked, his lips unable to form words. The stable boy had saved the kingdom, not the soldiers, not the generals, not the king. Aiden landed slowly, the golden dragon folding its wings as dust and ash swirled around him. The ground trembled with each step of the massive beast. Villagers gasped and backed away. Mothers held their children close, but none dared to move against him. Aiden slid down from the dragon's neck, his boots hitting the ground, his body weak from the bond, yet his eyes burned with fire. The people stared at him, as if he were a god in flesh. The knights dropped to one knee, the soldiers followed, the crowd bent their heads in respect. 1,000 voices whispering, Master, Savior, Dragon Rider. Aiden's chest tightened with emotion. He had spent his whole life invisible, now every eye was upon him, but he remembered the laughter, the insults, the cruelty he had suffered, the bruises from knights who treated him like dirt, the curses from nobles who mocked his poverty. He remembered how none had defended him, not once. He looked around at them, now bowing, shaking, praising him, and his heart grew cold. He whispered softly, so only the dragons could hear, "They fear me now, but they never cared for me before." The golden-eyed beast rumbled in his mind. "Fear is respect, Master, and respect is power." Aiden clenched his fists. He had never wanted power, yet now it was his, and no one could take it. The king finally found his voice. He called down from the wall, "Boy, what is this? What sorcery have you brought upon us?" His tone was not gratitude but suspicion and jealousy. Aiden raised his head, staring at the king, his voice steady. "I am no sorcerer, I am the bond you see. The dragons are mine, and they will never be yours." The crowd gasped at his boldness. None had ever spoken so to the king, but the dragons behind him growled, their eyes glowing, the ground vibrating with their power. The king paled, his words faltering. The nobles whispered among themselves, some fearful, some angry, some already plotting. Aiden turned away from them, his heart hard. He spoke not to the rulers, but to the common folk, his voice clear. "I will protect those who cannot protect themselves. I will fight those who would harm the innocent, but I will not bow to cruelty. I will not serve greed." The villagers wept and cheered. The knights looked uncertain, the nobles scowled, but none dared challenge him. Aiden climbed back onto his dragon, and rose into the sky, leaving the castle below in silence. When he returned to the hidden chamber that night, the dragons surrounded him, their eyes burning, their voices filling his mind. "They will fear you now, they will respect you now. You are no longer the stable boy, you are our master." Aiden sat on the cold stone, breathing heavily, the weight of the day pressing on him. He had fought, he had saved, he had been seen for the first time, yet he felt no joy, only the heavy truth that the world above would never look at him the same again. He was not a boy anymore, he was a power, and power always made men afraid. Days passed after the battle, and the kingdom began to heal. The fires in the fields were put out, the dead were buried, and the ruins of the walls were rebuilt. Yet, even as the people whispered prayers of gratitude for the boy who had saved them, shadows of fear spread through the castle halls. For every cheer there was a whisper of doubt, for every kneeling soldier there was a noble hiding in fear of what the dragons meant. The stable boy had become a master, greater than the king himself, and such power was dangerous. The nobles gathered in secret chambers behind heavy doors, voices low and sharp. "He is not one of us," one hissed. "He is a servant, a beggar, a boy who should have died in the stables," another growled. "Now he commands monsters that could burn this castle to ash in a single breath. We cannot allow him to rise further." The king sat at the head of the table, his crown tilted, shadows deep under his eyes. He said nothing for a long time, then finally whispered, "I am king, yet already they cheer him louder than me. Already my soldiers look to him instead of me. He is a threat to my throne, and threats must be removed." The nobles leaned closer, their eyes gleaming with greed and fear. Together they began to weave a plan to bring Aiden down, not with open war, for no army could match his beasts, but with lies, with poison, with betrayal. Meanwhile, Aiden remained unaware. He spent his nights deep in the hidden chamber, training with the dragons, learning their strengths and weaknesses, their fire, their lightning, their shadows, their frost. He grew stronger with each passing day, his bond deeper. But even as he gained strength, he began to notice the way people looked at him, not just with awe but with unease. When he walked through the courtyard, mothers pulled their children closer. When he passed by, knights lowered their eyes, nobles bowed, but with tight jaws and clenched fists. Whispers followed him like shadows. "Is he even human? What if the dragons turn on us? What if he is more dangerous?" Then the invaders, Aiden heard them all but spoke nothing. He told himself it did not matter, yet deep down he felt the cold distance growing. The golden dragon warned him one night, "Men will always fear what they cannot control, and they cannot control you, master." But Aiden shook his head. "I saved them, why would they turn against me?" Still he did not see the knives being sharpened behind the walls until the night of the feast. The king declared a celebration for the victory over the invaders. Banners were raised, tables heavy with food, wine flowing like rivers, laughter filling the great hall. Aiden was invited for the first time in his life, seated not among servants but beside knights and nobles, all smiling too much, their words sweet as honey, but their eyes sharp as daggers. The king raised his cup and said, "To the boy who saved us all, may his courage live forever." The crowd cheered, cups raised, but beneath the cheer Aiden felt a strange unease. The dragons above the castle stirred. Restless, their voices whispering into his mind, "Danger, danger, danger." He reached for his cup but paused, staring at the wine. It smelled wrong. He set it down and smiled faintly, pretending to drink, while watching the king closely. Hours passed, the feast continued, songs played, but Aiden did not eat nor drink, only watched and waited, and soon he saw it. A knight across the table slip a vial into the goblet meant for him, a flash of green liquid quickly hidden. Aiden's heart turned to stone. He understood. Then the betrayal was real. They did not cheer him, they feared him, they did not honor him, they plotted to end him. Quietly in the dark, the golden dragon's voice thundered in his mind, "Shall we burn them now, master?" His fingers trembled, but he shook his head. Not yet, not tonight. He would not reveal his hand so soon. He stood slowly, thanked the king for the feast, and bowed, then walked away into the night, his back straight, his eyes cold. Behind him whispers rose. Why did he not eat? Why did he not drink? Does he know? The king's face twisted with fury and fear, for the boy had seen through their lies. That night, as Aiden returned to the hidden chamber, he swore silently that he would never trust the court again, never trust the nobles, never trust the king. He had saved their kingdom, and in return they had tried to kill him. Betrayal burned hotter in his chest than dragon fire, and though he did not strike that night, he knew a time would come when the dragon's wrath would not be held back. The morning after the feast, the castle was heavy with silence. The nobles whispered in fear, the king sat restless upon his throne, and the soldiers moved with unease, for all knew the boy had seen their betrayal, and none knew what he would do next. Aiden walked alone across the courtyard, his steps slow, his eyes burning like embers. The people watched him from shadows, afraid to speak, afraid even to breathe. He was not the same boy who once cleaned stables. He was something more, something beyond there. Reach! The dragons circled above their wings, blotting out the sun, their roars echoing like thunder. The ground trembled beneath their weight, and the villagers fell to their knees in terror and worship. Aiden stopped in the center of the yard, lifted his head, and spoke, his voice clear, his tone unshaken. "I saved you from the invaders, I bled for you, I stood where no one else could stand, and how did you repay me? With poison, with lies, with betrayal." The crowd gasped, the nobles stiffened, the king's face turned pale. Aiden pointed to the sky. The dragons roared, fire spilling from their jaws, casting red light across the walls. "I will not bow to liars, I will not serve weak kings, I will not be chained." His words cut like blades. Silence fell, no bird, no wind, only the sound of wings. Then slowly the villagers one by one began to kneel, not in fear alone, but in respect, for they saw in his eyes not only fire but resolve. They saw a leader not chosen by crown or blood, but by strength and by bond. The nobles resisted, clinging to their pride, shouting that he was a monster, that he would destroy them all, but their voices were drowned beneath the cheers of the people. The king rose, trembling with rage and fear. "You dare defy me, boy, you dare challenge the throne?" Aiden's gaze locked on him, cold, unblinking. "I do not challenge the throne, I rise above it, for I need no throne to rule. The dragons are my crown, and their fire is my sword." The golden beast landed behind him, wings folding, eyes blazing like suns. The stones cracked beneath its weight. The king stumbled backward, the nobles cried out, some fleeing, others dropping to their knees. Aiden stepped forward, his shadow long, his voice thunderous. "From this day forward, I am no longer the forgotten stable boy, I am the dragon master. I will guard this land from those who seek to destroy it, but I will not serve false kings or greedy lords. Those who betray the innocent will face the wrath of my fire." The dragons roared together, their voices shaking the sky. And the people cried out his name, some in fear, some in devotion, but all in recognition. Aiden lifted his hand, and the beasts rose into the air, circling the castle like guardians of an ancient god, flames licking their jaws, lightning flashing from their wings, ice sparkling from their scales. The sight burned itself into the memory of all who saw it. That day the age of the dragons had returned, and at its center stood the boy they had once mocked, the boy they had tried to kill, now untouchable, unstoppable, unbroken. As he looked out across the land, beyond the mountains, beyond the rivers, he saw not just a kingdom but a world waiting, a world full of enemies, full of invaders, full of those who would bring chains and fire, and he swore he would meet them all, not as servant, not as victim, but as master. His voice rang out over the wind, carried by dragon fire. Let them come, and they will learn to fear the stable boy who rose from dust. And the dragons answered with a roar so mighty, it shook the stars, and the people below bowed their heads, not to the king, not to the crown, but to him, to the master of dragons, to the boy who became legend.